My mother ruined my wedding with 8 words. Not by screaming, not by making a scene, not by objecting during the ceremony. No, she did it with a smile on her face while adjusting a diamond bracelet worth more than my entire honeymoon. She looked me straight in the eye 3 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle and said, "Sweetheart, the gala is more important." I thought she was joking. Seriously, I actually laughed, because what else do you do when your own mother says something that ridiculous on your wedding day? But she wasn't joking, and neither was my father, or my sister. By sunset, almost my entire family had skipped my wedding to attend a charity gala across town. A charity gala. The photos from that night ended up all over social media. Champagne, red carpet, designer gowns, smiling faces. Meanwhile, I was standing at my reception, pretending my heart wasn't breaking every time someone asked, "Are your parents coming?" The crazy part? 3 years later, those same people showed up at my front door begging my husband for $8 million. And by then, I knew a secret that was about to destroy everything they thought they knew. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Natalie Mercer. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of how my family chose status over love, then paid for it. Growing up, there were always 2 daughters in our family, my older sister Vanessa and me. Vanessa was the golden child. I was the backup plan. If Vanessa got an A, she was a genius. If I got an A, my parents asked why it wasn't an A+. If Vanessa dated a guy, he was charming. If I dated a guy, they questioned his future. If Vanessa bought a dress, she had taste. If I bought one, I was wasting money. You get the picture. I spent most of my childhood trying to win a competition nobody told me existed, and every single time, I lost. My mother, Diane, wasn't subtle about it. Vanessa has leadership qualities. Vanessa is special. Vanessa was born for bigger things. I heard those words so often, I could probably recite them in my sleep. My father wasn't much different. He loved me, at least I think he did, but he worshipped Vanessa. There is a difference, a big difference. By the time we became adults, nobody even pretended we were treated equally anymore. Vanessa worked in luxury event planning. My parents talked about her career like she was curing cancer. I was a middle school teacher. My parents talked about my career like I was temporarily unemployed. Still, I kept trying. Birthdays, holidays, family dinners. I showed up, I smiled, I played my role. Because that's what daughters do, or at least that's what I believed back then. Then I met Ethan, and everything changed. I met Ethan at a bookstore. I know, sounds like something from a Hallmark movie. Trust me, I thought the same thing. I was reaching for a history book. He was reaching for the exact same book. Our hands bumped, he smiled, I smiled, and somehow we spent the next 2 hours talking in the coffee section. The man was funny. Not fake funny, not trying too hard funny, actually funny. The kind that sneaks up on you, the kind that makes you laugh when you're not expecting it. At the time, Ethan owned a small software consulting company. Nothing flashy, nothing impressive to people like my family, just a hard-working guy building something one client at a time. Which meant my parents immediately disliked him. Big surprise. The first time Ethan met my family, my mother asked him how much money he made. At dinner, in front of everyone. I wanted to disappear. Ethan just smiled. "I make enough." That was his answer. My mother hated that answer. Vanessa hated it too, because Ethan didn't play their game. He never tried to impress them, never bragged, never explained himself. and people who need control can't stand that, especially when they can't figure someone out. After 2 years together, Ethan proposed. Best day of my life. At least, it should have been. Instead, my family found a way to make it about themselves, again. The problems started almost immediately. Wedding planning. If you've ever planned a wedding, you already know. Everybody suddenly becomes an expert. My mother wanted a bigger venue. My father wanted more guests. Vanessa wanted different flowers, different colors, different music, different everything. The only people who seemed to care what I wanted were Ethan and my best friend, Chloe. One night, Chloe looked at me over dinner and asked, "Why are you letting them do this?" I knew exactly what she meant, because deep down, I knew my family wasn't helping, they were taking over. But old habits die hard, and I'd spent 30 years trying to keep everyone happy. Big mistake.
Huge mistake. The first real warning sign came 3 months before the wedding. Vanessa called me. Excited, breathless, practically vibrating. Guess what? What? Our charity gala got moved. I didn't think much of it until she said the date. My wedding date. Exactly. Same day, same evening, same city. I couldn't believe it. Wait, what? I know, right? She said, like it was some funny coincidence. It'll still work. Will it? Because one event started at 6, the other started at 7, across town. Anybody attending one couldn't properly attend the other, including my family. I felt something cold settle in my stomach, and for the first time, I wondered whether this was really an accident or something else, something worse. But that's not even the worst part, because 2 weeks later, my mother called with an announcement. Not a discussion, not a question, an announcement. And the second she spoke, I knew my wedding was no longer the priority. It wasn't even on the list. "Sweetheart, don't be upset." That's how the conversation started. You know how sometimes people say those words right before they completely ruin your day? Yeah, this was one of those times. I was grading papers at my kitchen table when my mother called. The second I heard her voice, I knew something was coming. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," which meant everything was wrong. She cleared her throat. "The governor will be attending Vanessa's gala." I blinked. Okay. And several major donors. Still waiting. And your father and I really need to be there. I stared at the wall. No way. No actual way. You need to be where? The gala. I laughed. A short, nervous laugh, because surely she understood what she was saying, right? My wedding. Her daughter's wedding. The event she'd known about for over a year. The gala is on my wedding date. I know. No apology, no hesitation, just those 2 words. I know. Something cracked inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. You can't be serious. My mother's voice became softer, the voice she used whenever she wanted to sound reasonable while being completely unreasonable. "Natalie, this event is important. My wedding is important." "Of course it is." Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "The gala is more important." Silence. Pure silence. I honestly thought I misheard her, but I hadn't. My own mother had just ranked my wedding below a fundraiser. I wish I was making this up. I really do. When I hung up, I sat there staring at nothing. 10 minutes later, Ethan found me crying. I told him everything. Every word, every detail. When I finished, his jaw tightened. Not anger, not yet. Disappointment. The kind that comes when somebody hurts a person you love. You know they're wrong. I know. Then stop acting like they're right. That hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. Deep down, I already knew. The problem wasn't my family. The problem was that I kept expecting them to become different people, and they never did. A week later, things got worse. Much worse. RSVPs started changing. Family members who had already confirmed attendance suddenly couldn't make it. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins. People who had promised they'd be there. One after another. Same excuse. The gala. Apparently, Vanessa had convinced half the family that attending her event was some kind of historic opportunity, a networking opportunity, a social opportunity, an important opportunity. I got so tired of hearing the word opportunity, I wanted to scream. You know what? Nobody calls your wedding an opportunity. They call it a wedding, because that's what it is. By the final week before the ceremony, nearly 30 relatives had backed out. 30. I remember sitting with Chloe looking over the guest list, red marks everywhere. She shook her head. This is insane. I know. No. She pointed at the list. This isn't normal family drama. What is it then? It's a loyalty test. The words hit me hard. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The gala, the pressure, the excuses. People weren't choosing events, they were choosing sides. And most of them had already chosen. Not me, never me. Vanessa. Always Vanessa. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt numb. Maybe because somewhere deep down I expected it. Maybe because after 30 years of disappointment, nothing shocked me anymore. At least, that's what I thought. Then, wedding day arrived, and everything got even worse.
Wedding day arrived, and somehow, despite everything that had happened, part of me still believed my family would show up. I know, I should have known better, but hope is stubborn, especially when it comes to the people who raised you. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. At noon, my mother texted. No call, no explanation, just a text. Running behind, see you later. I stared at the message. Something felt wrong, really wrong. At 1 o'clock, my father sent almost the exact same text. At 2 o'clock, Vanessa posted a photo on social media. She was already at the gala venue, hair done, makeup perfect, champagne glass in hand. The caption read, "Biggest event of the year." I couldn't breathe. Seriously? My wedding hadn't even started yet, and she was already celebrating somewhere else? Chloe looked at my face and grabbed my phone. A few seconds later, she muttered, "Oh, wow." "What?" "Your mom commented." I took the phone back. There it was, a comment from my mother. "So proud of you, sweetheart." Not on my page, not on my wedding post, on Vanessa's. I felt sick. Ethan found me sitting alone in the bridal suite. He didn't ask what happened. He already knew. The look on my face told him everything. He sat beside me, took my hand, and said something I'll never forget. "Natalie, stop looking for people who keep choosing someone else." I started crying, not because it hurt, because it was true. The ceremony began. Guests filled the seats. Friends, coworkers, neighbors, people who genuinely cared. But every empty chair felt like a spotlight. My parents' seats were empty. Vanessa's seat was empty. My aunt's, my cousin's seats, empty. 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 I walked down the aisle anyway, because Ethan was waiting, And unlike my family, he actually showed up. The ceremony was beautiful. The vows were beautiful. The kiss was beautiful. For a little while, I forgot about everything else. Then the reception started, and reality came back. People kept asking questions. Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Is your sister coming later? I smiled until my cheeks hurt. I lied, over and over. They're running late. They got delayed. They'll be here soon. They never came. Not one of them. Not a single member of my immediate family. Around 9 o'clock, Chloe showed me something. Another social media post. This time, it was a group photo. My parents, Vanessa, half my relatives, standing together at the gala. Laughing, smiling, having the time of their lives. Posted while my wedding reception was still happening. That was the moment something finally died inside me. Not my love for them, not yet, but my expectations. I stopped expecting them to become better people. And trust me, that changed everything. For the next year, Ethan and I built a life. A real life. Not a social media life, not a pretend life, a real one. We rented a small house, we worked hard, we saved money, we took weekend road trips, we laughed. A lot. And for the first time in my life, I felt peaceful. Meanwhile, Vanessa became even more obsessed with appearances. Every conversation revolved around status, connections, VIP events, influential people, luxury vacations, expensive handbags, perfect photos. My parents loved it. They acted like she was royalty. Then something strange started happening. My father began asking Ethan lots of questions. Lots of questions he had never asked before. Questions about business, revenue, clients, growth. At first, it seemed harmless. Then it became weird, really weird. One Thanksgiving dinner, my father asked, "So, how much is the company worth now?" The room went quiet. Ethan smiled. "The business is doing fine." My father pushed. "No, seriously." Ethan took a sip of water. "It's private." My father's expression changed. He hated that answer, just like my mother had years earlier. And for some reason, that answer made Vanessa angry too. I noticed, I remembered, and I never forgot. Here's the crazy part. At the same time my family was getting more curious about Ethan's finances, Ethan's company was quietly exploding. Not publicly, not dramatically, quietly. New contracts, new clients, new partnerships. The kind of growth most people never see coming. Ethan never bragged about it, never posted about it, never showed off, which meant my family had no idea what was happening, at least not yet. Then came the first major twist. One night, Ethan came home carrying a bottle of champagne. I immediately knew something had happened. "What is it?" He smiled. That smile. The one he gets when he's trying not to smile. "We got acquired." I blinked. What? His company had been purchased by a much larger technology firm. The deal was worth millions. Millions. I couldn't believe it. After years of grinding, years of sacrifices, years of hard work, everything had changed. We celebrated quietly, just us, because that's who we were, what we were. What we didn't know was that someone else would soon discover the truth, and once they did, everything would explode. 6 months later, my father called, out of nowhere. The first thing he asked wasn't how I was doing, wasn't how married life was, wasn't whether I was happy. No, his first question was, "Is it true Ethan sold his company?" I almost laughed. There it was, the real reason for the call. I kept my voice calm. "Why do you ask?" Long silence. Then, "People talk." Translation, he had been investigating. the same way he always did. I told him yes, the company had been acquired. He immediately asked another question. How much? I nearly dropped the phone. Seriously? Not congratulations, not that's wonderful, just how much? When I refused to answer, he became irritated. That told me everything. 3 weeks later, the second major twist arrived. My cousin Lauren called me, secretly. Natalie, don't tell anyone I called. That got my attention. What happened? Her voice dropped. Your parents are in trouble. Big trouble. The truth started pouring out. Over the previous 2 years, my father had invested heavily in several business ventures connected to wealthy friends. Every single one failed. Millions gone. Loans, debt, second mortgages, bad investments. Even worse, Vanessa had convinced them to pour money into a luxury event company that was collapsing. The family that had always acted rich wasn't rich anymore. Not even close. They were drowning, and nobody knew. Except now, I did. A month later, they showed up at our house. All of them. My mother, my father, Vanessa, standing on my front porch. I hadn't invited them. I hadn't spoken to them in weeks. Yet there they were, looking nervous. I knew immediately they wanted something. The second they walked inside, I felt it. The energy, the desperation, the fake smiles, the forced warmth. Then my mother started crying. Actual tears. Natalie, we need help. There it was, the moment that changed everything. Because suddenly the people who skipped my wedding couldn't stop talking about family. Family, family, family. Funny how that works. When they needed something, family became important again. Then they finally said it. The number. $8 million. They needed $8 million to prevent financial disaster. My father looked at Ethan, not me, Ethan, and said, "We'll pay it back." No way. I almost laughed. After everything they had done, after years of treating him like he wasn't good enough, now they wanted $8 million? The room became silent. Then Ethan asked one question, a simple question, a devastating question. Why would I trust you? Nobody answered, because nobody could. That's when the biggest secret finally came out, the secret Lauren had hinted at weeks earlier. Vanessa hadn't simply made bad investments. She had stolen money, family money, investment money, business money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and my parents had spent years covering it up. Years. The gala, the status, the luxury lifestyle, much of it had been funded by lies. Everything unraveled. Right there. In our living room. My father started blaming Vanessa. Vanessa blamed my mother. My mother blamed everyone else. It was chaos. Pure chaos. And for the first time in my life, nobody was blaming me. A few months later, the consequences arrived. Lawsuits, investigations, bankruptcy filings, asset seizures. The entire image my family spent decades building collapsed. Meanwhile, Ethan and I kept living our lives, peacefully, quietly, without drama, without pretending. One evening, my mother called. Her voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard. I made mistakes. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever received, and honestly, it was enough. Not because it fixed anything, because I no longer needed it to. That's the funny thing about healing. Eventually, you stop waiting for the people who hurt you to understand what they did. You just move forward. 2 years later, Ethan and I welcomed our first child, a daughter. The day I held her, I made a promise. She would never wonder whether she mattered. Never. Not for a sister, not for money, not for status, not for anything. Because love isn't supposed to be earned. It's supposed to be given. Freely, completely, the way my family never understood. Sometimes people ask whether I regret cutting ties. I don't. What I regret is how long I kept chasing people who had already shown me who they were. My family chose a gala over my wedding. That hurt, but it also revealed the truth, and the truth set me free. Because when everything finally fell apart, I learned something important. The people who truly love you don't show up only when you become valuable. They show up when you have nothing to offer except yourself. And those are the people worth keeping.